The whole promise of Bitcoin has always been so powerful, so simple. It's this new kind of money, secure, decentralized, and most importantly, there's only a limited amount of it. That's why people call it digital gold. But what if? What if the very thing that keeps the whole network running has a kind of self-destruct date built right in? Yeah, let's really get into that.
See, the block reward, that's the prize miners get for doing all the hard work of securing the network, it's actually designed to just vanish over time. And for years, the general thinking was, it'll be fine, something else will take its place. But what if that's totally wrong? Today, we're going to dig into some really fascinating new research that pokes some serious holes in that assumption. We're asking the big question, what actually happens the day the rewards stop?
Okay, so to really get why this is such a potential bombshell, we need to go back to square one. We have to talk about Bitcoin's original promise, because its entire economic engine is built on this one absolutely brilliant idea.
Think about the cash in your wallet. Governments can just print more of it, right? That's inflation. Well, Bitcoin was built to be the exact opposite of that. It's deflationary by design. It was created as an escape hatch from that system, a world where the total supply of money is locked in, totally predictable, and can't be changed by anyone.
And this is the number. The big one. 21 million. That's it. There will never, ever be more than 21 million Bitcoin. That absolute, hard-coded scarcity is the whole ballgame. It's what gives it value, just like gold. But how does the system actually make sure that number is never, ever broken?
Well, the answer is something called the halving. It's pretty clever, actually. But every 4 years, the reward that miners get for adding a new block to the chain gets sliced right in half. This whole process just keeps slowing down the creation of new Bitcoin, bit by bit until, sometime around the year 2140, that reward goes all the way to zero. The very last fraction of a Bitcoin will be mined, and then that ticking clock just stops.
So what happens then? For the longest time, the story about what happens next was super simple, and basically everyone just accepted it. It was the official plan, straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, Satoshi Nakamoto's original white paper laid it out pretty clearly. The idea was that as the block rewards dwindle, the miners' pay would switch over to transaction fees instead. Those little bits of Bitcoin people pay to get their transactions processed quickly. It seemed perfect, right? A really clean, elegant solution.
And honestly, for more than a decade, nobody really questioned it. It was just assumed the system would make this smooth transition. But here's the problem. Here's the catch. Paying miners a fixed, steady reward is a totally different game than paying them with a chaotic, unpredictable pile of transaction fees. And that one little difference, according to some new research out of Princeton, might just break the whole thing.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. The whole problem boils down to how this change in pay messes with a miner's incentives. Let's just walk through a really simple scenario that shows you the first crack in the foundation of this fee-only model.
All right, look at this. It's a choice, a fork in the road for a miner. Imagine a block was just found that was packed with, say, 100 Bitcoin in fees, a huge payday. But the next block in line only has 5 Bitcoin in fees available. So what do? Option 1, you play by the rules, you mine that next block, and you get a tiny 5 Bitcoin reward. Or there's option 2. You could ignore that last block that was found, create your own fork of the chain, and try to remine that juicy 100 Bitcoin block for yourself. But here's the twist. You only claim 55 for yourself, and you purposely leave 50 on the table for the next miner. Why would you do that? It's a bribe. You're trying to tempt other miners to build on your dishonest chain instead of the real.
You see, this was never really a problem back when the big fixed block reward made every block worth roughly the same. But in a world where it's only fees, some blocks become lottery jackpots, while others are chump change. So if you're a miner and your only goal is to maximize profit, which path do you take? The honest one or the profitable one? Suddenly breaking the rules looks really, really tempting. And believe me, this is just a first step down a very slippery slope.
So that one choice? It starts a domino effect. As soon as a few miners decide to choose profit over protocol, it forces everyone else's hand. To stay in the game, you have to get just as aggressive, if not more so. It becomes the toxic spiral.
The first step in this downward spiral is a strategy the researchers gave a great name: petty compliant. It's a tiny little tweak to the rules. Normally, if 2 blocks are found at the same time, you just build on the one you saw first. But a petty compliant miner says, nope, I'm going to check which one leaves more fees for me to grab, and I'll build on that one. It sounds kind of logical, right? Just being a little petty.
but it's the crack in the door that lets something much nastier in.
Because once everyone starts acting petty, it escalates into what's called an undercutting attack. Miners go from passively choosing the more profitable block to actively creating forks just to steal blocks from each other. They'll find a valuable block and then intentionally undercut the last guy by remining it and leaving behind a bribe for the next miner, just to get everyone to follow their chain instead of the honest one.
Now, this chart looks a little complex, but the story it tells is actually pretty simple and kinda scary. What the researchers did was run simulations where they told virtual miners, hey, just find the most profitable way to mine. And what happened? They didn't settle on a nice, stable, honest system. Not at all. They immediately fell into this escalating war of undercutting each other. It becomes a total race to the bottom, where to win, you have to include fewer and fewer transactions, which basically throws the entire network into chaos.
And as if that wasn't already bad enough, it turns out this fee-only environment also takes a classic, well-known attack against Bitcoin and puts it on steroids. It makes it way more powerful and way easier for anyone to pull off.
Okay, so this classic attack is called selfish mining. Here's how it works. A miner finds a new block, but instead of telling everyone, they keep it a secret. Then they immediately start working on the next block, trying to build their own private secret chain. If they can get ahead of the main public chain, they can suddenly release their longer chain, which forces the whole network to accept it as the real one. They get all the rewards, and all of the work the honest miners did just gets thrown in the trash. But now, just look at this comparison. The old-school selfish mining was definitely a threat, but it had big limitations. You had to be a huge mining pool, with like more than a quarter of the whole network's power to even have a chance of it being profitable. But this new version in a fee-only world? This is the crazy part. It's profitable for anybody, even a tiny miner with a minuscule amount of power. And it's profitable right away, instantly, no waiting.
And this graph just seals the deal. It shows that this new and improved selfish mining strategy is just flat out more profitable than anything else. It beats honest mining and it beats the old selfish mining attack, period. So for any miner who is just trying to make the most money, which is, all of them, the incentive to attack the network becomes absolutely overwhelming.
So let's just take a breath and see where we are. We've got undercutting attacks causing constant chaos and forks in the chain. And we've got a superpowered version of selfish mining that anyone big or small can use to their advantage. What does it all mean? It means the very foundation of Bitcoin's security, the thing that's kept it safe for over a decade, looks like it could just crumble to dust once that block reward is gone.
And the consequences here are not good. We're talking about a world where constant forks could make it easy for someone to rewrite history on the blockchain, to spend the same coins twice. The legendary 51% attack could suddenly become possible with way, way less than 51% of the power. And in the absolute worst-case scenario, the network just stops being able to agree on anything. Consensus breaks down, and the whole system just stops working.
Which brings us to the absolutely shocking conclusion from these Princeton researchers. It's the ultimate irony. They're suggesting that the one thing Bitcoin was built to destroy, inflation, might actually be the only thing that can save it. Their proposal? Maybe you have to make the block reward permanent, a small, predictable, forever inflation to keep all the miners honest and keep the whole network secure.
And that leaves us with a massive dilemma, right? It forces us to ask what Bitcoin even is. Do you stick to the sacred rule of 21 million, even if it means the network could become totally unstable and fall apart? Or is a tiny little bit of permanent inflation a small price to pay to guarantee that the network is secure and survives for the long haul? The endgame for Bitcoin? Well, it might look nothing like what any of us thought.